Comic Book Savant, episode 340.
I know this. This I know. All that I have, all that is me, resides inside my poetry. And every time I write a rhyme, it might be the line that sets mine free. And also, I know that I don't...
Welcome to the Comic Book Savant podcast. I'm your host, James Harris. This week, it is all about Wonder Woman. This is going to be a spoiler-filled review of the Wonder Woman movie. So if you haven't seen the movie as of yet, I would advise you to stop the podcast now. Come back to it later after you have watched the movie. If you want to see the non-spoiler review I did for it, I have a video on the Comic Book Savant YouTube channel that you can check out, or you can go directly to comicbooksavant.com. I have it posted on the website as well, so you can go there if you want to see my non-spoiler review for Wonder Woman if you haven't seen the movie yet and you're on the fence about going to see it. Otherwise, if you've seen the movie and you're cool with hearing a spoiler-filled review, this is what this is for. But before we get into that, as always, excuse me, I'd like to give a shout out to my friends over at the Comics Podcast Network. You can find them over at comicspodcast.com. If you like this show and you want to find other comic book related content to listen to or watch, definitely stop over to the Comics Podcast Network. The network has grown out to literally hundreds of different podcasts are listed there based on comic book related content, be it via publishers, teams, individual characters or heroes, you name it. It is a section for it, or probably a podcast for it, that you can find over at the Comics Podcast Network. It's just a one-stop shop. It's a really great resource for comic book fans to find content that they can listen and watch on the go. So definitely, if you have a moment, stop by the Comics Podcast Network over at comicspodcast.com and check out what they have to offer. You might find something else you like if you enjoy this show and want similar type content. So stop by and I can't encourage this enough. If you do try out a couple of podcasts and you find some things that you like, definitely respond to the content creator and let them know, hey, I found your show through this means. I'm really enjoying it. It means a bunch. I know for myself, when I get feedback from you guys via like Facebook or on Instagram and stuff like that, when I get that feedback, it means a ton to me. So you just never know. A lot of times that can drive the creator to keep putting out content or elevate the level of their content. So I encourage you guys to be an active part of these communities or these podcasts that you listen to as well. If you enjoy them and you follow them long term, definitely, contribute via asking questions, giving feedback, those kind of things. But enough on that. Last but not least, I'd like to give a shout out to the sponsor for this episode and every episode, which is InStockTrades.com, one of the best places you can go on the internet for collected editions, absolute editions, omnibus, you name it. If it's collected, you can find it probably at InStockTrades.com. They have discounts ranging from 35, 42 to up to 50% off with their deals of the week. They have they highlight 5 individual collected editions on the homepage on InStockTrades.com that you get up to 50% off. Any orders $50 or more, if you are a U.S. customer, you get free shipping, but that's only available to U.S. customers. If you happen to be an international listener and you want to check out InStockTrades.com, don't let that deter you. You still get all the great savings. You just don't happen to get that deal on the shipping, but they have some of the lowest and competitive international shipping rates around. So definitely still check it out. You still can probably save a ton of money. So I'd like to thank them for their continued support of the podcast as well. Now getting into the meat of the episode, which is all about Wonder Woman, which is directed by Patty Jenkins, which is known for her work with Charlize Theron on Monster about 10 or 13 so years ago now, where Charlize Theron was won an Oscar for a performance in that movie. The Wonder Woman is written by Alan Heinberg, Jeff Johns, and Zack Snyder. Now, the great thing about this, and I'll get into this further later on when I start talking about the movie in more detail, we do know Alan Heinberg. He came from television. He did some writing over at Marvel. He actually wrote Wonder Woman for a point in time over in DC. And he's an openly gay man. And it's been so much stuff, and I've been watching so much news of everything coming out of, Wonder Woman, with it kind of pushing a feminist or, the bisexual community kind of embracing the movie because it overperformed for what people were estimating beforehand. Everybody wants a piece of it now and kind of jumping on board with it. I think it's strange that they don't put, Alan Heinberg is not really getting any shine for his work writing, being a part of the writing team on the movie. And I also like to applaud Jeff Johns because, again, we know Jeff Johns. He is one of the head guys or the head guy over DC Films right now. We know he's a phenomenal writer, over at DC, and he's still doing some writing. He's doing an upcoming Watchmen Superman crossover event. I can't even remember what it's called right now. I was just reading about it a few days ago, which is a phenomenal writer with his work over at Marvel and DC. They're not kind of putting that out there. I mean, I guess maybe it goes against the feminist line that is pushing as far as how it's being accepted. Girl power, a lot of different movie theaters did all female screenings. I know when me and my wife went, it was a pretty good mix in the crowd of little girls or, groups of women with bringing their kids, and it was big groups. So it was a lot of females, but it was just as many males as there. But I kind of feel like it's a shame because he's a noted writer in television. He was connected to the OC, which was a big show, in the early 2000s. He had a monster run over at Marvel with the Young Avengers, which I loved that original 12-issue run that he did on that series. And he had a pretty decent run on Wonder Woman. So it's sad in a way that he's been lost in the shuffle because he's such a good writer and he's such talented, and he never made any qualms about being gay. And it's, if this movie's all about love and acceptance, you would think that DC wouldn't shy away from that, but they would push it. But they're really pushing heavily, the Gal Gadot, Patty Jenkins thing. And I'm kind of, like I said, shake my head at it if that the message of the movie itself is love and it's something that's worth fighting for and even dying for. That, with that being said, you have someone in the LBGT, community, and you kind of are covering it up. And he's one of the most pivotal people because he helped write the screenplay, and he's been attached to this movie for the longest time. Joss Whedon originally, tried to do this movie like 10 years ago, and it just never came to fruition. Couldn't get the support to get the movie made. Then Alan Heinberg, I think when he was coming off of Young Avengers, they tried to bring him on board, and he was writing, was attached to writing different versions of scripts for the movie then. So he's been attached to this movie a long time, and I was kind of shocked when at the end of the movie when I was watching the credits that he was credited. I didn't know. So I was like, oh, because I've read and seen interviews with him being attached to this project, before this iteration, many other various incarnations of scripts that were passed around. Because this movie, before even the building of this DC extended universe, this movie universe, connected universe, he had been, associated with trying to get a Wonder Woman movie off the ground. So it was cool to see that he was still brought back into this successful attempt, or they gave credit because they used bits and pieces of maybe a past screenplay. I don't know how that worked out, but I see that he is definitely given one of the three people that are given credit as a writer on the movie. So they use some part of some incarnation or conception of some form of a script or treatment that he did at some point, which is awesome. And the breakdown for the movie is as follows. Before she was Wonder Woman, she was Diana, princess of the Amazons, trained warrior. When a pilot crashes and tells of a conflict in the outside world, she leaves home to fight a war to end all wars, discovering her full powers and true destiny. And the cast is as follows. We have Gal Gadot as Diana Prince and Wonder Woman. We have Chris Pine as Steve Trevor. We have Robin Wright as General I hope I pronounced it correct. Antiope. Connie Nielsen as Queen Hippolyta. We have Elena Anaya as Dr. Poison. Danny Houston as General Eric Londonderf, I think it was pronounced. We have David Thewis, I guess, as Sir Patrick, a.k.a. Ares, and we're going to talk heavily about that later. Saeed Tamiyo as Samir, Ewan Brimmer as Charlie, Eugene Brave Rock as the Chief, and Lucy Davis as Etta Candy. I thought this cast was really, next to the hiring of Patty Jenkins, the casting of Gal Gadot, this was one of the best cast movies, comic book movies, or any movie that I've seen in a while from like top to bottom. I can't say it was any weak spots in the casting at all. You know, many people question Gail's acting chops, and you know, and she's not going to be nominated for Academy Award, you know, anytime soon. But what I like about Gail in her portrayal of Wonder Woman is her physicality and her selling of emotion in the character. Sometimes it's not just the words you're saying and so much in a scene. It is your movements, it's your facial expressions that sell the emotion just as much as your actual verbal performance. And I think she did well on all fronts. You know, the one thing that I've heard more people talk about in their reviews, and I even experienced this, you know, talking to a friend of mine, you know, one of the first questions she asked me, I said, yeah, you know, if I only got a chance to go see Wonder Woman, one of the first things she said was like, how good did Gal Gadot look in the outfit? And I'm like, you know, she looked fine. And it was something, you know, that I'm not going to sit here and try to front on anyone and be like that. Gal Gadot is not a stunning woman. That she is. You know, even when I first saw her in, I can't remember, Fast and the Furious 4, I want to say, or was it 5? Whichever movie she first premiered in the Fast and the Furious series is when I first got acquainted with Gal Gadot. You can't look at the woman and not think she's a beautiful woman. But I wasn't going for, you know, I have a very beautiful wife, you know, like certain things like that, I don't go into a movie saying, you know what I mean, that I'm going just to stare at a good looking woman. I look at a good looking woman every day when I'm at home. So that's kind of the furthest thing. And I really didn't think about outside. She looks like Wonder Woman to me. Like I never had a problem with separating, you know, I'm watching Gal Gadot or I'm watching Wonder Woman. When I was in the movie, to me, she's my Wonder Woman. Like when she sold me on her being Wonder Woman and Batman v Superman, and I've talked about this many times, when I knew she was my Wonder Woman, my personal Wonder Woman, is when Doomsday knocked the crap out of her and knocked her slam across the battlefield, and then she went into a wall and was like coming out of the wall, wiping stuff off, and she kind of smirked and did this, you know, like smiled, and then flew back and started fighting Doomsday. I was like, that's some Wonder Woman type stuff, because, you know, I have a certain personal history with Wonder Woman, because, you know, and I spoke on this. If you are a longtime listener of the podcast, please excuse me on why I go to, you know, tell my association with Wonder Woman. I started reading comics. Comics were the first thing I started reading. I've talked about this story numerous times, that my older cousins that I was very close to would hand down their old comics. The first comic book I ever have a tangible memory of reading was an old beat up Wonder Woman comic. It didn't even have the cover on it anymore, so I couldn't tell you what issue it was. But on the first page of the comic, it was Wonder Woman fighting Cheetah, and it was the first comic book I ever read. So that's how far back my history with Wonder Woman goes. It's literally started my journey in the comics because it was the first one I ever read. And, you know, I've read different incarnations through different writers over the years. When I got heavily into DC in the mid-90s or so, I can't even remember who was writing it at the time. I want to say... Maybe with Greg Rucka. It was one of his first comics things that I think I read, and I went back and started following him and his independent stuff. But I think the first mainstream comic I was reading of Greg Rucka at the time was Wonder Woman. And I read it in the different incarnations thereafter. Like I said, I read Alan Heinberg's run on it. You know, Rucka, Azzarello's New 52 run, which was great. I didn't, certain runs that I didn't read, like JMS, even though I love him as a writer, I skipped some of that. So I've read Wonder Woman pretty consistently throughout my life at one point or another, multiple different runs of it. And she embodies the character. She doesn't need to be an Oscar-winning, actress for me. She's sufficient enough because she makes me believe, she buys into the spirit of the character to me, and that's all that matters. It doesn't matter that she looks pretty in a tight outfit. It matters to me. Does she make me believe? Does she give me that suspension of disbelief to believe in that she's that character, make me care for that character? And she has the chops to do that. So that's all that above anything else is why I love her in the role. And I personally feel like that the shift in for the DCEU at this point needs to maybe shift her as the primary focus of the DC expanded universe right now, because with all the Ben Affleck stuff and with the Batman and all the drama, all the cancellations behind the Flash movie and directors, not cancellation of the movie, but the potential delay of the movie because they can't nail down a director and all that kind of stuff. Like, they need something positive to shift as the front runner, and they fumbled it so much with Henry Cavill, and even with Superman, which should be kind of the center point. Like with Marvel, the character you let off with is the character that you kind of build your movie universe around. But they've really fumbled their handling of Cavill. So right now, with all the positive energy in her great performance, maybe need to focus on pushing her as the center point as of right now. You can shift it back later, but it's the DCEU, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit more detail a little bit later. They need to kind of shift focus, and this is why this movie was so important, and I'm so glad it hit in a positive way. And so much negativity has been surrounding the DCEU, kind of unjustly. They weren't fan favorites or critically acclaimed in review wise, but all the movies have been successful and have made a profit and have been very viable financial successes. Now, critical acclaim, fan acclaim, this is the first movie, but it's not like, if this movie, didn't make a certain amount, it was going to fail unless it just tanked and didn't, hit enough to make its money back. It's gonna, it's made its money back between, domestic and international the first weekend. Everything else is gravy. Now will it make $1 billion? Doubt it, but it will. But none of the DCEU movies have broke $1 billion, I don't think. They came, maybe Batman v Superman was like 800,000, 900,000, $1 million. But they haven't had one to beat $1 billion yet, so that's one disadvantage to Marvel. They're not making Marvel super money for their bigger Marvel movies, but they're basically on par if you look at the numbers. So it's kind of weird. Like, there's like, if this doesn't hit, it's gonna be the end for the DCEU. No, it's not, because they've been successful. It's just the critical acclaim and how that might turn viewers away from things that are upcoming, like Justice League and Aquaman, because those are the two movies that are currently in production that we have, coming up the pipe in the next year. So it was important in public perception in how those other movies will be perceived and how they perform in the box office. And I think this is why this movie was so important, kind of similar to the point where Guardians was very important at that particular point for Marvel, because they were so successful with their Earthbound heroes, but they needed to expand the universe out to space if they were going to properly set up all the Thanos stuff for where they were going. So if that movie had tanked in any shape, form, or fashion, it could have derailed their plans to get to where they are now. So it was pivotal for them. It was the same thing here, but just in the court of public opinion, that they could make a good movie that the fans would like and accept and make money. But far as it's performing like all the DCEU, they all have been financially successful movies. So I just wanted to get that stigma kind of out of the way, because it carries like a negative cloud over their movies, which I don't know why, because people go see them and they make money. They don't make Marvel money, but you can't, as being comic fans, you might have your preference, that's fine, but you can't totally discount one company over another. It's a symbiotic relationship. Marvel roots for DC to succeed and have hits because it opens up the door for them, and vice versa. You got to keep the crowd interested, and they learn and they take things from one another. Gonna talk about that a little bit more later. Chris Pine was phenomenal. I felt like he was the standout in the movie. He was a perfect, balance to play off Gale, and he had wonderful chemistry throughout the movie. I really, really, really loved them, and how they played off one another. I loved, and also, I don't know, it's just one of my favorite casts that I've seen in a while. Robin Wright was pitch perfect as Antiope in training, watching her train Diana as she was coming up and kind of doing it behind Queen Hippolyta's back, and that was really cool. I felt like Elena Anaya as Dr. Poison, I don't have a problem with the actress. I think she portrayed the role fine. I just think they didn't give her anything to work with, and I could have kind of did with her part. Dealt with her not even being in the movie at all, because if they weren't going to take advantage of having I'm not familiar with her past work, but I thought they had one glimpse of a really good scene between Chris Pine and her at the banquet, the ball, that I thought was like the meatiest part they gave her, and I was like, man, why didn't you see more of her in that light? And they gave her a lot of over the top, basic villain stuff, which I felt like was super Marvel-y at this point. That how the focus was on the hero, and not then the bad guys weren't very developed at all. And I wish between Marvel and DC they could strike a better balance between the two. You can dedicate not the whole movie to the villain, but just have a good balance to at least their motivations. Make them more clear of why they're going to the extremes that they're going to of being a villain, to just establish that a little bit more, or establish it a little bit better moving forward in the films for me. That goes for Marvel and DC. Danny Houston was good. I felt like he was also underutilized. The whole twist, and this is the funny part, and I'm going to reference my wife again, because some of you get a big kick out of I tell these movie-going stories about me and my wife, is, she said, like, early in the movie, and it's funny because I'm normally the person that does this. She was like, she turns and looks at me and was like, either Danny Houston, General Ludenoff is the villain, or it's Sir Patrick. And I was like, really? Like, yeah, either one of them are Ares. I was kind of thinking, for me, I didn't put any real thought to it on as far as what was going on the screen. I was just kind of, enjoying the movie and kind of going with the flow. So I just assumed Danny Houston always plays a bad guy. He played in Wolverine Origins. He play, most of the time you see Danny Houston in a movie, he plays a bad guy, and he's really good at it. So, and when I was seeing the little vials that Dr. Poison was making and he was ingesting it and like he got this power, I was like, oh, because they said, Ares was hurt. I was just going with it. I didn't put too much thought beside it. My wife was like, but she's like, but I don't think this would be too obvious if it's Ludendorff. She was like, I think it's Sir Patrick. I was like, oh, okay, whatever, hon. I just kind of feel, yeah, okay, hon, whatever. Yeah, you're not the comic book person I am, whatever. And sure enough, when the end, when the little twist comes, she's like, I told you. And I was like, wow, you did. And, again, and I've said this about my wife, she's not a comic book reader, and she does, she watches certain cartoons and the animated films with me, and we go all see all the movies, together. So, so she'll ask me, and, and I'll fill in the blanks here and there. And, she watches different things on, her own, or maybe look something up on the internet and read about it. But she's not like, she doesn't, read comics on any type of regular basis. So for her to guess that so early on in the movie, it was even before the midway point of the movie where she made that statement. I don't know if that was a good or bad thing. Overall, I think this movie definitely had some weight to it. In the third act with Chris Pine's sacrifice, I loved how that was handled, and it added a certain weight, and it gave us an insight into Diana and how she is now in the current day. And I love how they kind of did that. The movie was mainly a flashback, and, it's bookended by, a little scene at the beginning, a little scene at the end of the current day. And this being her scene of getting the original picture back that we saw the digital replication of in Batman v Superman. And it immediately made me want to go back and watch Batman v Superman, the Ultimate Edition, the Ultimate Cut of the film. And I'm going to do that. Probably do it this weekend because it really made me want to be like, I really want to watch that again now, because it will give me, now knowing more of her background and her struggle and seeing what she lost. I think it would give me the scenes, even though she's not in a huge part of it, but I feel like it would make it more impactful for me understanding her point of view, seeing it, now, knowing more of her backstory. And I love how they had that loss, that emotional, that her love for Steve and her loss of Steve is that emotional core and emotional center to be her motivation on her fight against evil, regardless of whatever the personal cost may be. That certain things in life is worth fighting for, which is love. Like, I dug that. I felt like all the action scenes, it's not a ton, and this is not a superhero action-y movie. I felt like it was balanced just right. I've heard some people make comparisons that, like, this is a classic superhero origin story, like Donner's Superman or Tim Burton's Batman movie. Okay, I don't know if it's that on that terms, because I feel like this movie is a good movie. It's a solid movie. Is it the best DCEU movie? I don't think so. But I think it was, and I understand this too, and I don't want people listening to this to take it the wrong way, but, oh, you disliked or hated the movie. No, but as I get older, and I've been reviewing movies between this show and my old podcast that I used to do, Pop Media Savant. At this point I've reviewed hundreds of movies in podcast form, and now doing video reviews and so forth. I reviewed a lot of movies. I've watched even more in my personal life, even outside of reviewing movies. Like I said, next to comics, probably my next biggest love is movies. I can understand now and be open enough to know that I wasn't the target demographic for this movie, so it wasn't meant to cater to me. So I understand that. It doesn't make me dislike the movie for that. I just understand I wasn't the target audience. I like it. I enjoy it. When it comes out on home video, I will buy it and add it to my collection. And I will watch the movie and very much enjoy it. Was the movie, the structure of the script, very original? No. And this is what I wanted to speak on, is that it borrowed very heavily from Captain America, the First Avenger. I mean, even down to her merry band of soldiers. I mean, you swapped out the black guy for Indian guy, French guy for the Samir, which is kind of the Middle Eastern guy, but it had the same Charlie character as like Dum Dum Dugan in a way. Very similar, I felt like you got to know the Howling Commandos a little better in Captain America, the First Avenger, but kind of similar beats. But of course, it was a female, and another reason too, it was kind of a reversed First Avenger in a way, kind of the plot structure, because Steve was very much a man. Steve Rogers was very much a man of that time frame, and so he was versed in that. And then you flipped it in the third act of the movie when he awakened, in the third act, the very end of the third act of the movie, and he is awakened. And he's a man displaced out of time, and now he has to adjust. Where you get that from the beginning, where Diana's brought into the world of man from being on Themyscira, and then she's a woman out of time and out of place, so to speak, because she's never been exposed to the open world because she's been on Paradise Island her whole life. So it was very, very similar themes. I don't knock the movie for it because it worked for what this movie needed to be for this character. I enjoyed it, for that. But I would have loved to see something more original, but it actually worked, and it was what it needed to be to make this movie the success it is. Because they couldn't risk going too original, potentially going too dark, and it being knocked by critics and fans again. So they needed something friendly, so they kind of followed the blueprint kind of set forth by Marvel, and it paid off for them. I wouldn't like to see that going the DCEU movies are all now following the Marvel template, because I kind of feel like it is like a template at this point. I hope now that it gives them the license to kind of do a mix between the two, have some darkness, but with some levity in there, and have a balance, and let the director do what they do. I'm glad it felt like this was Patty's movie. This wasn't where we know that Suicide Squad was tampered with in editing. We know that it was a lot of different hands in Batman v Superman, and then they demolished it in the cut. And even with the ultimate cut, it was still another version that was even longer that we'll probably never get to see, or it'll be 5 or 10 years before we get to see the movie in its truest form. Because the ultimate edition was like 3.5 hours. It was like, I think they said at one point it was like a one cut that was 4 or 4.5 hours long. That's somewhere around there. That maybe we'll get to see one day down the road, but it won't be anytime soon. This actually felt like they let her do her thing, and they put their hands up in the air and let her do her thing. I think, that it made Warner Brothers played it safe, but I felt like they kind of had to at this point just to they needed the fan approval. So they kind of played it safe to get that. And it has paid dividends for them financially at the box office. And I think it's going to continue to pay off going forward in subsequent weeks, that this movie is going to do extremely well. I think the movie's super family friendly. Like I said, I saw a lot of single families or like a lot of, adult women, that are friends with all their kids going to see it. You've seen so much. The news has been covering it about all girl screenings and people posting videos that are going viral of their little cute daughters in Wonder Woman outfits saying, I want to see Wonder Woman again, or I love Wonder Woman. It's like, it's a phenomenon. And, deep down, I can't believe Marvel kind of let DC beat them to the punch. But maybe Kevin Feige, that's what he wanted to do. Let them take the risk and experiment. And now they can kind of follow their way or tweak the blueprint, the template they set forth to make Wonder Woman successful. So now Captain Marvel or Miss Marvel will be even that much better because of it. That's why I say all of it so much is a give and take. All in all, I think the script was a little, like I said, the whole story itself was a little bit pedestrian. But with the direction of Patty Jenkins and just the overall actor performances, to me, made a movie that would have been, to me, it sold it and made me very much enjoy the movie and love the movie for what it is. The action set pieces were good. I didn't care for the CGI on the lasso. But all the other sequences, I loved how they used the slow motion because it really worked well to sell Gail's physicality as Wonder Woman, and I love those scenes. I thought, like seeing the previews, that the super slow motion, that it might be overused. I felt like it was used just enough, and it really worked. I think the biggest, more so than the end scene, I love the middle scene where she was in the no man's land sequence, which is like right in the middle of the movie. I think that was the best action sequence and very emotional sequence in the movie. And this movie gave me the feels repeatedly throughout it. I wasn't expecting that from a superhero, from a comic book movie at this point, to get the feels for it. But I had feels when I saw Guardians, and I spoke about that because of the familial relationships. But this, just of her determination and her fighting the good fight despite crazy odds, it just gave me the feels multiple times. And I got visibly emotional. I didn't cry or anything, but it did touch me in a way. Like, it was very inspirational. Her determination was inspirational. But all in all, like I said, I really enjoyed the movie. All in all, I say on my rating scale, I would give it a date night rental, which is numerically is between a 7 number numeric wise. It is between a 7 and an 8. I give this movie a 7.5 out of 10. Like I said, I really enjoyed it. We'll definitely pick this up when it comes out on home video. This was definitely up for repeat viewings. Like I said, it's really, a keeper, for me. Now, if I had to rank the DCEU movies at this point, going from worst to first, I think that, Suicide Squad is number 4 for me. I think, Wonder Woman would be number 3, for me. But it's a big gap between this 3 and 4. Suicide Squad, I've watched it a few times since it's been out on home video and on demand and stuff like that. And I've watched it a few times, and it loses something each time I watch it. It doesn't stand for repeat viewings at all. Wonder Woman is a fun movie. I think, it's a big gap between 3 and 4, and then my 3 through 1 are pretty close for various reasons. So Wonder Woman is number 3. Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, the Ultimate Edition, is my number 2 movie for me. I don't like the theatrical cut. The theatrical cut probably would be the 4th on the list for me if I had to rank it. But I'm talking about the Ultimate Edition, which I think added so much more to the movie, and I really like it. And I feel like it is a companion to my number 1, which is Man of Steel. I think you can't have Batman v Superman without Man of Steel. It's like, to me, one story just put through 2 movies, but it's one continuous story, in my opinion. So that's my ranking from top to bottom: Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman, Batman v Superman Ultimate Edition, and then Man of Steel. Now we have 2 upcoming movies. We have Justice League in no, is it November or December? I can't remember. November or December. We have Justice League coming out this year. Then we have Aquaman coming out the following November. So, no, Justice League is December, mid-December. I think the week after or the week before Star Wars comes out at Christmas time. And then Aquaman comes out in November, I want to say 2018. So those are the two, that's filming now. Justice League is doing reshoots currently. So they're in the final stretch. They're doing their pickup shots and whatnot for, that coming down the final stretch. Now, my concern for the DCEU is it's a lot of movies that have been announced in some shape, form, or fashion that are in development. And I'm just going to run through these movies real quick. And this is where my concern lies, where it's so much being thrown out there that they need to kind of narrow their focus. Okay, we have the Batman that's in development. We don't know when it's coming out now. We got Batgirl that was announced not too long ago with Josh Whedon I think he's writing and directing. And then he's taken over for Zack Snyder since, he had to, he left the production of Justice League after the loss of his daughter. So now he's helming the reshoots for Justice League. Then I guess when that's finished, he's going to start pre-production for Batgirl, but we don't have a set in stone release date for that. They've announced a director for Nightwing, and that's coming. It's been rumblings. It hasn't been officially announced yet, but it's rumblings that it is a Man of Steel 2 or whatever it's going to be called in a Superman sequel coming at some point. They've been looking for a director for Suicide Squad 2. At one point, they were trying to go after Mel Gibson and a lot of other big name directors. We don't know. So that's something that's, that they've openly talked about. They announced Justice League 2 and they were supposed to be filming Justice League 1 and 2 back to back. That got pushed off. So we don't know exactly when that's going to be coming in the slate. Since Wonder Woman's so successful, it's a lot of talk and about, Wonder Woman 2 and when that's going to be coming down the pike. We do know that Patty Jenkins was signed on for another movie as well as Gale. So, we don't know. Some questions been asked about what time frame she would set the movie. Would it bring her to America? So there's a lot of little questions. And Patty Jenkins said she had some ideas on where she wanted to take the next movie. We don't know if that's going to be greenlit and pushed in front of some of these other movies just because of the success of this movie and they want to strike while the iron's hot. We don't know. I hope not, that we sort of get maybe a Man of Steel movie, because I feel like that sequel's way overdue at this point. And I kind of felt like they should have did a Man of Steel 2 proper before they had done Batman v Superman, and that should have been the follow-up after. They could have set it up better and even set up the Wonder Woman thing so it wouldn't have been so much on the one movie, Batman v Superman. I think it could have done better, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, which doesn't mean too much, but I just felt like they needed that I think they wouldn't have been on such shaky ground and needed Wonder Woman to bail them out if they had Man of Steel 2, Batman v Superman, then Wonder Woman. I think they could have paced out and then Justice League. It would have flowed better and not so much crammed in that one movie that it had so much pressure to set up everything that came after it. So then we have The Flash, which is in total limbo because they're doing another rewrite on the script. We don't know who's going to direct the darn movie because every director keeps walking off. It's lost 3-4 directors at this point. We have Shazam that we haven't heard too much about. It is a director attached to Shazam, but then we heard now that they're going to do a Black Adam movie and still do the Shazam movie. And Rock is set to play back Black Adam, and he's supposed to be the big bad in Shazam. I guess he's still going to be in Shazam, but then he's going to be in Black Adam. It's talks that whenever a Man of Steel sequel comes up, or maybe even as soon as Justice League, that Rock might be appearing, making a cameo as Black Adam. So that's a whole nother thing that's been talked about and thrown around out there in the media. Cyborg, which was originally announced on the slate for, late 2019, early 2020, as well as Green Lantern or Green Lantern Corps. We haven't heard much about those movies, but when they originally announced their movie slate, those were in there. what was going to be Dark Universe or Dark Justice or whatever. Universal has dubbed their monster movies as the Dark Universe, and I think that was the working title for the Justice League Dark movie. That's been talked about. Doug Liman was going to direct. He walked off because of scheduling conflicts, so they're still looking for a director. They're trying to get that movie off the ground. Gotham City Sirens, they've already announced David Ayer was going to direct that. It's supposed to be being produced by Margot Robbie's production studio was supposed to partner with that. They announced that earlier in the year. We haven't heard too much more about it. And last rumblings I heard, David Ayer was trying to get David Ayer to direct the can't remember what studio is trying to fast track a modern remake of Scarface, and I've heard things heard in the movie news that they were trying to get him to potentially direct that movie because they're trying to fast track it to get it out sometime in 2018. So it's a potential that Gotham City Sirens might be coming later down the road because he might be able to do that movie first, then go into production on Gotham City Sirens. Who knows at this point? And again, this Black Adam movie that's being thrown out there by The Rock that's being split out. And I think they named a director for it, or he was suggesting a director he wanted to work with on the movie. So that's a lot of films, and you got the Nightwing film in there too. Like I said, that they announced a director on. That's like about, 12, 14 movies that have been announced in some shape, form, or fashion at some point that's in production. And Flash was, supposed to be following after Aquaman. We don't know when that movie's coming out at this point. And they talking about they were doing a page run. The last news I heard a few weeks ago is that they're scrapping everything but the script and doing a page one rewrite on the script even. So they're going to have to totally redo the script, which will take however long, actually find a director that's going to agree with the script that they write, and then start getting the movie in production. So, and it's been so much shakeup with the Batman. Like, we have no idea what in the world is going on and when. Maybe at Comic-Con in a couple of months we'll get a clear vision and we might hear some more stuff about they get more focused and start maybe setting up some release dates to have us, because we have nothing to look forward to after Aquaman next year, and that's the only film they have slated to come out for 2018. So after we had the two movies this year, and then it's going to be one at the end of next year, and then we don't know when the next one we're getting is going to be, unless they're got something under wraps, super top secret somewhere. Who knows? You never know with DC films at this point. But that's all I have for you guys. That's my thoughts on not just Wonder Woman, but the DCEU right now, where it stands and where it might be going. It is a big mystery that needs to hopefully do with the success and the acclaim of this movie will help them kind of get refocused and realign some of these projects and see what's going to be the next one to lead. If I had my vote, at this point, even before Flash, because it's a mess, I would fast track and try to get a Man of Steel sequel out. I feel like that needs to be done at this point, especially coming off of Justice League and Aquaman. It gives you some time that maybe you could do it. You have, I guess the earliest, if you get it in production soon, you could shoot for sometime 2019. We know it's going to be a big anniversary of Batman coming up, so it's rumors that they were shooting for 2019 for Batman. So maybe the two movies would be, the Batman and then whatever the Man of Steel sequel would be. Then maybe follow that up with Flash. Then some maybe Wonder Woman 2 or Justice League 2. The other movies are kind of on the edge. You can have Nightwing and it's not tied into the bigger picture, but those main characters, I kind of would lead with those as far as in the forefront of driving the overall narrative, pushing it forward. The Batgirl, the Nightwing, you can kind of put those out. Suicide Squad, you can kind of put those out in and around those movies as they get going. But as far as the overall vision of pushing the narrative, the joint narrative forward, those are the movies I feel like they need to hit. Man of Steel to The Batman, Flash, Wonder Woman, or Justice League 2. Probably Wonder Woman, then Justice League. That you get all the other characters out and then come off of Justice League with Cyborg and Green Lantern. And like I said, the other movies are not that much a part of the main narrative to me, that they can come out as you get those ramped up and going. They tie into the bigger world, but they're not pushing the main narrative. They're like little pocket things, because Suicide Squad didn't have a heavy effect on the overall DCEU, a part of it, outside of it being a part of it. And I feel like Batgirl can be that way, Nightwing can be that way, Shazam and Black Adam can be that way, Justice League Dark is a separate entity. Those movies, Gotham City Sirens, they can come out whenever. But I feel like as far as the main universe movies, the core movies, those need to be aligned better than what they are right now. Just one news note. Again, I do have a Facebook page, like I told you guys, which is facebook.com/Comic Book Savant. I also have a discussion group, because I always say you guys reach out on Instagram and do that kind of stuff, which I stay active on Instagram and Facebook. And I kind of felt like that the Facebook page would be a target for you guys to go and chat. I just created a discussion group. It's just, if you want to join the group, it's this Comic Book Savant discussion group. So it's up and live now on Facebook, so you can just search for Comic Book Savant discussion group. It should come up, or just search for Comic Book Savant. You should find it. Just add yourself to the group. I'll approve it, and then I'll talk about, we'll talk about topics and things that you want me to cover on the show. It just gives us somewhere easy, one central place to go, and we can all talk, get to know one another, discuss what you guys want me to cover on the show, and you can give input for questions that I want, or topics that I want to cover on the show. I can get input from you guys directly right there on that platform. Everyone has Facebook. Everyone gets on Facebook at some point. So I thought that would just be a good place to set that up, since discussion boards have sort of got passe over the years. When I first started the show, discussion groups were big, and like I said, I had a huge discussion group through Comic Geek Speak. They had a huge forum that they gave me a sub bulletin board or whatever through many years ago. That was hugely successful. So I felt like this would be the next best thing to having one proper through maybe the website or anything like that, is just do it through Facebook, because everyone at one point of the day, you can access that through your phone, on your computer. You have many different ways to access it. So please definitely go check that out. Give me a follow on Instagram. I'm becoming more and more active on social media. Check out the Comic Book Savant YouTube channel. Please subscribe. It's going to be original content coming on there. Like I said, I'm aiming to do at least one video a week. I might be doing more, videos as time comes. Like I said, it's a work in progress now. So at least one. I didn't do one last week, but I did the non-spoiler review for Wonder Woman. I have the next few, videos that I want to do planned, and just getting, footage and getting all that stuff together. Also, definitely, if you want to help support the show, check out the Patreon page at patreon.com/Comic Book Savant. Definitely, if you can't contribute anything that way, just keep sharing, spreading the show. Go to YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube channel, share the videos, all that kind of stuff helps as well. So if you can't, go to the Patreon page, or I even have a PayPal link if you just want to contribute a one-time donation to the show. It all goes back into the show, to new equipment, things that I need. I want to start going back to cons. So that's where the ask for the support comes from. Now I have an affiliate link set up with Amazon as well. So now, before, when I would put links to Comixology and things like that, now I'll have those going forward on the YouTube videos and even on the website. that when I make recommendations to stuff, if you're interested in help supporting the show, you can click on those links. It'll take you into Amazon. I get a little portion of anything that you buy, like when you click through on that link. So that'll help support the show as well. I like to let you guys know these things up front so you don't see them and you're caught off guard by them. So I always try to be 100% transparent on those things. So I'm trying to take this to another level. So I need your guys' support one way or another. Keep doing what you're doing. I appreciate everything you have done and that you continue to do in the future. And that's all I have for you guys for this week. I will see you again next week for another episode of Comic Book Savant. You guys take care and have a good week.
And into lyrical wholeness. And I know this, and I know this. This I know, this I know.